continue working with real numbers. All we've done with them so far is added. So we're going to add on subtracting today, and then we'll look at multiplying and dividing next time. Turns out for subtracting real numbers, we don't really need a new way to approach it, because subtracting is the opposite of addition. They really work the same way. So we're going to fall back on those addition rules from last time. Like, do you remember what we're supposed to do if we're adding numbers that have the same signs? What was the rule? We said to add them together. And what do we do about the sign?
You keep
the same sign. That's right. So that's still going to help us out today. And on the other hand, the second addition rule was for when the numbers have opposite signs. What do we do in that case for opposite signs?
You add them and keep the same sign. And you keep the sign of the large number.
So don't add. Subtract them. That's right. And keep the sign of the larger number. So all that work from the other day is going to pay off again today with subtraction. Where it says example number 1 here, let's write down 10 minus negative 5 and see if we can understand why we don't need a whole new set of rules. Or in other words, how can I think of this as an addition problem?
You add a subtraction sign on the outside, it would go in to be the positive part.
Yeah, that's what a lot of folks call a double negative, right? The minus that's immediately followed by the negative is going to come together and make a plus. So 10 minus negative 5 is really just the same thing as 10 plus 5. You got it. So even though it looks like subtraction to start with, we can think of it as an addition problem. And we know that would make 15. That would be the addition rule from the other day where they have the same sign, so we add them together. And we're going to keep that same sign, positive 15. Well, let's see. We could have even more negative signs. Let's write this one down next. Negative 1 minus negative 7. Do you know how we can think of that as an addition problem?
Would it be negative 1 plus 7?
It would. Negative 1 plus 7. So again, the minus and the negative that were together here come together to make a plus. But this other negative out in front of the 1, it just stays there. We're going to think of that as a negative 1 plus 7. Well, that's kind of the worst of the worst because there's negatives and minus signs everywhere. Let me show you one with a lot fewer signs and see if we could look at it as an addition problem also. Oh, I forgot this answer. What would that equal, by the way? 6. Nice. And that turned out to be our second addition rule because the 7 and the 1 had opposite signs that get subtracted. And we kept the sign of the larger. I'm so excited about number 3, I forgot to finish number 2. Maybe excited is not the right word. So what do you think? 3 minus 6. How could you think of that as an addition problem? The 3 is going to stay the same.
The 6 becomes a negative.
The 6 becomes a negative. Yeah, so 3 minus 6 is really the same thing as 3 plus a negative 6. It's kind of like that minus just slides on over and attaches to the 6. And then we think of adding together numbers with opposite signs. Negative 3, that's right. Well, we have almost every possible sign combination listed so far. Let's just put in one more and then we'll have them all covered. How can we think of negative 13 minus 4 as an addition problem?
Negative 13 plus negative 4.
You got it. So again, that negative just kind of slides over and attaches to the 4. 13 already had its own negative, and then the plus in between. What would that answer be?
Negative 17.
Negative 17. That's right. They've got the same sign, so we end up adding and keeping that same sign. you kind of notice this middle section here where we have the pluses? Let's kind of take one number at a time. Do you see what's going on with the first numbers? Is anything changing with those first numbers?
The sign.
10 stayed 10, -1 stayed -1. Those look the same, don't they? First number stays the same. What about the second number? We had been subtracting a -5 here, but we ended up with a 5. We had been subtracting a -7 here, but we ended up with a 7. We had been subtracting a 6 here, but it turned to negative. We had been subtracting a 4, it turned to negative. You see that every single one of those flipped to the opposite side? And that's what we want to do to think of any subtraction as an addition problem. The first number before the subtraction stays the same. Then we'll put that plus in there that we want. And the second number that had been after the minus is going to flip and have the opposite sign from what it started with. So that idea that stays the same, we make it a plus, that's the opposite sign, would help us a little bit fill in the blanks. To subtract two numbers, we're seeing that we can add the first number to the what of the second number?
Opposite.
You got it. And when we say opposite in math, we mean opposite sign. So we don't really need a whole new set of rules. We see how we can think of any subtraction as an addition. Anything you'd like to ask about it first before we try a few? Well, down at the bottom where it says try number 1, how about you write down 18 minus -19? And just to kind of practice this idea, see if you can fill in what it would look like as an addition problem, as well as your final answer. I have a number 2 example filled in for you also when you're ready. 781 minus 593. What are you guys getting for that first answer?
37.
37? So what did it look like as an addition problem? You were really adding
18 plus
18
19.
plus 19.
18 plus 19, yeah. Sometimes folks have said that when they see that minus followed by that negative, they literally think of that minus and negative becoming the crossbar and the parenthesis becoming the vertical bar to make a plus. So it really almost looks like a plus when you run all that together. Other folks think about when you take the opposite of the opposite, you end up right back where you started from with an addition. If you have any tricks that help out, let us know. We'll share them around. How about the 781 minus the 593?
188.
188.
188? And what did that look like as an addition problem? It would have been,
781 plus minus 193.
yeah, nice. 781 plus a negative 593. So they end up having opposite signs. 781, 593. That means we would subtract their values and take the sign of the larger. Sounds like a good start. Anybody like to ask about them so far? All right, let's see. We haven't had any negatives out in front yet. So how about a few more? Let's try negative 5 minus, oops, I don't know what that's about, minus negative 3. Here's what it should look like. And then let's try negative 36 minus 84. So what'd you get from the negative 5 minus the negative 3?
Negative 2.
Negative 2, great. If we keep the first number as is, that will still be negative 5. And minus negative all comes together to make a plus. So negative 5 plus 3. How about the negative 36 minus 84? What did that make?
Negative
Negative
120.
120.
Nice, nice. And if we want to think of that as adding, that would be like negative 36 plus
Negative 84.
negative 84. You got it. On number 3, we had the opposite sign, so the values got subtracted. On number 4, we had the same sign, so the values got added. Anything we could have helped out with there so far? So what do you think you'd like to practice on a little bit more? Should we focus on signs or big numbers, fractions, with or without a common denominator? What do you feel like they could use some work on?
With or without.
Alrighty. Any other requests?
And then big numbers too.
Big numbers too? Good deal. So let's flip the page over and let's start with 123 minus negative 357. I've got number 6 with one with fractions filled in and ready for you.
The library.
Yeah. All right. What do you guys get for number 5 here?
40.
480? Nice, positive? Good. Minus and negative came together to make a plus, so we end up adding. How about with the fractions? What's that going to make? Great, great. Both of them are negative, so they also end up being added. Anything we can help out with on those?
Please don't tell me that's a punishment.
No, I think that's a, sounds like a truck out there, a trash truck.
I was like, I gotta get the train home.
No, thank you. So we said with or without a common denominator. How about we try this one? Without a common denominator. 2 9ths minus negative 5 9ths. Oops, I said it wrong. 2 9ths minus negative 2 5ths. What are you thinking for the common denominator?
45.
45 sounds good.
And then the numerators would be 10 and 18. Just one.
Yeah, that sounds good too. So 10 over 45, 18 over 45. How about in between them? Ends up being a,
Oh, plus.
alrighty.
Yeah.
So we're going to add. They end up having the same sign. Are we ready to put together a final answer?
48 over 45.
Great. The other requests? Big numbers, fractions, with and without, we got covered. We could do one add. Anything else?
Can we do another one?
Yeah, what sort of would you like?
Like one of the number 7s?
Another one like number 7?
Yeah.
Sure. How about negative 2/3 plus 1/5? What would be the common denominator this time?
15.
15.
15. Sounds good. So the first fraction, how many 15ths would that be? Negative
10.
10, okay. And the second one would be plus 3. 10 here, 3 there. They've got opposite signs, so let's think about subtracting when we put together our final answer.
Negative 7 over 15.
Sounds great. So That's great. There's one on homework that's kind of long. It has a couple of subtractions within the same problem. It's going to look something like this. Let's write it down here at the bottom. Negative 14 minus negative 5 plus negative 12 minus 21.
Huh?
Several numbers being added and subtracted together. Take a second to think how you might approach it. If I have a final answer they want to try out on us?
Negative 42.
Negative 42?
Negative 52.
Negative 52?
Minus 42.
Negative 42?
I'm still working on it.
Still working? All right. Well, let's see. If I was just trying to stick to the things we've talked about, there are other ways to think about it, but to be consistent, I'm going to stick to the things we've talked about. I want to try to write it all as adding. So I'm going to leave that negative 14 and change this to a positive 5. Okay, now this is already added, so let's leave it. And then how could I write this as an addition? Think of it as plus
Negative 21.
negative 21. All right. So we have a whole bunch of numbers being added together. We could just take them two at a time and work our way through. Or maybe you group together all the negative ones to start and then add on that positive. Lots of options. Let's say you put all the negative ones together. Since they all have the same sign, I'd want to add the 14 and the 12 and the 21. And because they were all negative, that result's going to be negative. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 3, 4. That would make a negative 47. And I still need to add that 5 onto it. Now these have opposite signs, so I'm thinking about subtracting 47 and 5. And keeping the sign of the larger number. Negative 42 sounds good. Let me know what we can help out with on that one. Maybe you did something a little different. You want to check and make sure it's okay.
Can you do another one of those?
Sure, sure. No sweat. Any other questions about this one before we find another? Let's see. So, no, there it is. Practice number 18. Let's see what it's going to look like on that one. Let's try this one. Negative 22 minus negative 9 plus negative 12 minus 15. What'd you get?
I'm negative 40.
Negative 40? I'm getting nods. Yeah, yeah. How's your coming, Sam?
We're good.
Getting there?
Time's going by pretty fast in class now.
It does, doesn't it? You stay busy, it does, zips by, doesn't it? That's the trick, for sure. Here's what Math thinks about your negative 40. Fantastic. Nicely done.
So,
So for those kind of problems, you just, instead of thinking it's just like S subtraction, you just kind of shift to an addition to the group, I guess. I guess that's what you could do.
That's how I tend to look at it, yeah. If you prefer, it makes more sense, you could just take like 2 numbers at a time and like figure that part out. And then it'll look more like we're used to. You know, whatever answer that is, you could add it on to the next number and then subtract that to the next. So here's the little bit of steps on that one we just did. Anybody else wanting to make sure, double check anything? Anything we can help with on that one? So this adding and subtracting is great to be able to do straight, like the problems we see, but it's even more helpful if we can figure out when to use it and how to apply it. So we see on the next page some applications. How about you read through application number 1 and see if you can figure out how to use some of this adding or subtracting to answer the question. Give you a minute or two to think it over. And we'll check in to make sure you're doing okay. We've got some positive and negative numbers to work with, don't we? We have the starting elevation of negative 56 feet, and then it says that they rose 18 feet. So noticing that the starting point is the negative 56 would help us to get started. And then what do you think you might do with that 18 to show that they rose that amount?
Make it possible.
Add it.
Yeah, make it positive, add it. And then that result should let us know where they ended up. Negative 38 sounding good? The signs were opposite, so we end up going over on the side and subtracting. We need to do a little bit of borrowing to carry it out. Negative 38 sounds great. So again, we knew to add because of the word rose right there. Anything we can help with on number 1? Why don't you see what you think about number 2? Besides the fact that this looks like the worst business idea ever. So what does it seem like we should do with those three numbers?
Adam,
Add them? Yeah, and how do you know add? Because they're asking for the total. Sounds good. Since they all have the same sign, we really are going to add when we go over on the side to do our scratch work. We can do all three at once, or we can take two at a time. What does it add up to?
Negative 681.
Negative 681. They're losing money fast, aren't they? I don't think my lemonade stand's ever made money, but I'm pretty sure I didn't lose $600 in the deal.
I think it's 681.
681, let's see. Adding them all up, 3A makes 11, carry the 1,
I see what I did. I wrote down 33.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, I wrote down 281 instead of 218.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Pro tip, don't change the numbers, right?
I wrote down 133 instead of 3.
Oh my goodness. We got Oh my goodness. Any other thing we can help out with on that one? So number 3 is pretty similar to some we've already done. So is number 4. How about we jump over to 5 or 6, because they're a little bit different. Why don't you start with number 5? So let's see, we've got some water. Nikki's fishing from a bank up above. Here's Nikki. The worst jar ever. It says that that bank is 41 feet above water level. And the fish, it says, tend to be 48 feet below water level. How long would her line have to be to reach the fish? Yeah,
89 feet.
89 feet, you got it.
Wait, how'd you get there?
Yeah, 41, 48 together.
We are going to end up adding 41 and 48 together. From the reading of the problem, though, you might see there's some other stuff going on before we maybe realize that it needs to be added. Like you might start with that 41 feet above water level, which would be a positive. And maybe think about the 48 feet below the surface as a negative.
I see what that.
At this point, it doesn't really look like they should be added yet, does it? But the thing is, in order to find a distance or a difference, we do need to subtract. So there's really a double negative behind the scenes there, causing us to add them together. Kind of like on your number line, if something's on the positive end and something else is on the negative end, we're going to end up with a bigger answer when we try to find out how far apart they are. That was tricky, isn't it?
You gotta pay attention to the wording.
Yeah. Nice job getting it right the first time. 6 is kind of similar. Should we try it too, maybe?
Sure.
Yeah, so what you think about 6?
A lot of these businesses don't even do it.
Yeah. Exactly. Good thing we're here for 'em.
I'm ready for Burger King.
Are you thinking about that profit as a positive number? And a loss maybe as a negative? And then since they want the difference between the amounts, remember difference is a fancy way to talk about subtraction. So let's start with our profit, the positive. Did you guys get all the digits right this time?
I think I got the right one.
And then let's represent that loss as a negative. And to find the difference, we'll subtract. So it really ends up, because of that double negative, being an addition problem. Should get a great big answer, shouldn't we? Great big answer, like A, B, C, or D. Well, let's see, 69, 430, 68, 850. Add them up, they're both positive, so get a positive result. B looks good, 0, 8, 2, 8, 3. If it is still not quite making sense why we ended up doing what we did, you might think about a number line and how that positive number would be way down on the right end of the number line somewhere. And that loss, the negative number, would be way down on the left. So when they're asking for the difference, it's really how far apart are they? So we're going to need to include all of this distance plus all of that distance. I think there's a similar homework question, so just be kind of on the lookout for something asking about a difference or positives and negatives, things going opposite directions.
Can you try number 3 on the other page?
Sure. We had a request for number 3. Let's flip back and try that one out.
For sure. I did this one, I wouldn't put it up on the right. Oh, sorry.
Says that the start, the temperature was -7 degrees, and then it rose or had risen 27 degrees. What do you want to do about the 27? Add it, great. So we have numbers with opposite signs. When we go over on the side to do our scratch work, they really need to be what? Subtracted? Yeah, and we'll keep the sign of the larger one. So correct answer would be, you got it. Did you you tried number 4 by any chance, since that's the only one we left? Answer to it should be
2:30.
D, 2:30, yeah.